Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Before getting started, I just wanted to mention that if you have any questions as we go through the webinar, please type them into the questions box on your screen, and we'll be able to get those answered at the end. Kyle, with that being said, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jane. Great. Thanks everyone for joining us today. You know, as this is a regular series, we're very we like doing them. It's going to be quick. You know, they're 20 minutes, informative about P3. Feel very lucky to have Ed Otis, the compliance and training manager for Star Group, joining us today. We're going to talk about multi-location dashboards, multi-location functionality. As we build out more mobile inspections and the mobile service, there's more reporting that comes with that, and really we're trying to figure out the best way to make it intuitive and as easy to navigate as possible, but also having a lot more functionality. So these are not live yet, but this is what the multi-location dashboard is going to look like. So when you log in, you're going to be able to see you're going to come to a screen and you'll be able to see your field reporting, to drill into field reporting, vehicles, containers, bulk plants, or regulators and piping. So this is going to be the master architecture of the dashboard for multi-locations. If you were to drill into field reporting, you'd be able to then select your code and compliance summary, which is really your dashboard roll-ups. And this is the first functionality that we've released. Field performance report, you can see that on your individual dashboards, comparing how are my people doing in the field. Site conditions would be if there's some sort of follow-up that we're seeing. Your activity report of all overall activity. User activity is really going to be your logins in iOS by reason. That's a report that I'm really excited about. It's going to be able to show, are we resolving our interruption service calls correctly? You know, are we having too many of them? Are they being resolved promptly? Are we getting good leak checks? All of that stuff. For vehicles, you're going to be able to see your crane inspection, monthly meter creep, and pre and post trip inspections. Containers, you'll be able to see roll-ups of your cathodic, your 5-year DOT cylinders and tank asset tracking. And for regulator and piping, you'll be able to look at regulator expiration, recall, and CSST tracking. I'm going to move over. So this is, right now, if you have multiple locations, this is hidden. So we haven't had even a lot of, it's a soft launch. We haven't had a lot of, you know, we're incrementally rolling out functionality. So if you have multiple locations, you can see here, there's P3 propane. These are samples. We're not delivering propane. These are just our sample data sets. So you can see these are the individual locations, and then this is the roll-up P3 propane. So this is the code and compliance summary. This is the first multi-location reporting that we've rolled out. So here the idea is to have better tools for your management team, so you can identify locations that are doing great and locations that need follow-up. So here you can see we have 4 locations: Kingston, Kittery, Portland, and Portsmouth. Before we get into the minutia of this report, I want to also show you that we're building functionality so that you can automatically email this report. So if you want it to go out every Wednesday, you can program that in. It'll be able to send automatically to your distribution list. So as we look at this report, we can see we've got Kingston, Kittery, Portland, Portsmouth. On the left side is really recent activity, last 30 days. So you can see field work of 109. That would be like inspections that you're doing. So pretty robust use. That's great. And we can see a couple locations that are really good. Those are the ones in green. You can see this Kingston location has 8% priority follow-up that over the last 30 days, and they're resolving all the issues. It's all green. These are the total issues here. We can see Portland is another good location, clean dashboard. That's what we're looking for. We can see Kittery, a lot of legacy issues. So something's happening that we're not resolving. This is a fault. I need to figure out what's going on here. For Portsmouth, we've got a different sort of issue. On the Portsmouth side, we've got 20% error rate over the last 30 days of field work. So that might be, we got to figure out who's doing it and resolve it as soon as possible. So Ed, I think I'll kick it over to you. And actually, before I do, I think you got a special guest with you. Can you show us? Is Cody there still?
My mascot.
Cody! Thanks, Ed. Oh, what a good boy. This is reporting you guys are using already. What regularity, who are you sending it to? What regularity? How has it helped you with the management process for your team?
Absolutely. With multiple locations and trying to keep them all informed as to where their employees are, what coaching needs to be done, and then if the office is actually resolving customer issues and ensuring that we're safe. We're using the mail-in feature. We're mailing it every week to multiple locations. And, the left side of your report here is showing me what's happened in the last 30 days on a rolling 30 days. So if I see a high follow-up rate for priorities, I start to wonder, do we not coach an employee in the field correctly? Does someone need some more training? And then on the right side, if I'm starting to see stuff go 30, 60 days, I'm wondering, why aren't we taking care of our customers? What's going wrong here in the office? Do we have a new employee that needs more training on how to handle the customers and ensure that we're being safe? Mailing this out, on a weekly basis, it has a couple of effects because we have so many locations on. We actually break them out by BP, representative of the area, and they can see if their districts are maintaining. And I pit them against each other. I'm playing the game with them. I'm telling one VP, hey, look at this one. He's doing really well with this. What do we need to do to get you to the same level? The idea is, no matter what you do, there's constantly going to be coaching in the system. You constantly have a new employee or someone doing a task that they don't do all the time. It's going to be caught on auditing, and this is going to highlight that. And by reviewing them reports that you're starting to pile all this information together, we can coach that employee, improve their skill set and quality of workmanship, and then we can watch the office on the other side and make sure that our employees are resolving issues for customers and we're not leaving something hazardous or even just a quality of workmanship not repaired at the customer's house. I'm very excited to look to the future, to think, the site condition report you mentioned is something we use, that if for some reason we can't do an install, we demand pictures on it. We want to see why we had a truck out at a site that cost hundreds of dollars to get there and we couldn't do our job. What was the prevention on that? Is it something we should have been able to do over there? Or is it something that, we need to follow up with that customer to be safe? Be able to compile them, especially for new employee training, is going to be so beneficial, not just for us, but for the entire industry that's using the system.
That's great. Thanks, Ed. Yeah, I say two things when I'm working with our clients. I say, first, you need to develop a policy for resolution. Okay, so we have a leak check issue. What is your policy? Are you going to go back out and do a complete safety inspection? Would you just go out and get a leak check? How are you going to deal with these flags? What is your policy? And it's I think if it's you can really get buy-in from your field team, because they might see stuff on the install too, and we see it coming back with the photos. Like they know, like, hey, this container is too close to the building opening. I know I have to go back out there. And that's going to let us know, okay, we're on the same page. We're not going to let this thing slip through the crack. The other thing that I'm saying to my clients is I want you to have a clean dashboard. So if anything needs to be resolved, it's going to stick out.
Right.
So you're talking about the coaching. Are you doing that? Are you seeing more of the coaching with your management and administrative team or your field team? Is it a split between both of those?
It's a split. It really is. It's coaching the manager. Our team, we have many members on our team, and we can coach the field directly, and we do. We try to coach our managers to be better at what they're looking at, to understand what we're calling out and start doing the coaching on their own. Everybody can forget something. Everybody can misstep something. And like I said, an employee that hasn't done a task in a certain amount of time may have forgotten exactly how to do that. And recoaching them, getting them back in line is great for the field. But if we don't improve our managers, they can't start self-coaching themselves. It's probably split between both. And our standard right now is pretty much a 30, 60, 90. I want anything that's a priority resolved within 7 days. So if, worst case scenario, there's a blizzard coming, a customer needs heat, and we had to set a tank next to an AC unit in the winter, I'm not overly concerned that we're going to have an incident right then, but that needs to be resolved before that AC is on. And I try and get a 7-day resolution on all priorities. And if it's something that, we need to move further away from a potential hazard, if the customer has a ignition source close that's not being used, we can give them 30 days to get that done. Once it breaks 30 days, I'm really tracking and pushing that office to say, why can't we get this resolved? We need to get out there and get this resolved. And as a multi-location user, like many out there, I'm sure we have budgets for everything, for games and, taking on accounts that we don't want to be going back out and doing the work twice. So coaching that employee that we've done it right the first time, along with your site condition report, submitting the photos. We also have a process that if an employee is on site and unsure of themselves, by entering the pictures into P3, we can instantly see them, look at them, and give advice to that employee to resolve an issue before they move on to the next tank set.
What do you, do you have a sense of with stuff that would be a priority follow up and, really we define that, like, are we going to need to go back out and resolve? Is there, is there something that needs to be resolved? Are we going to have to return and adjust? Is there some things that you see more, like what sticks out with you overall with stuff that you're seeing in that category?
That's a great question. And, one thing I wanted to point out first was for everybody to understand that priority follow-up number, that percentage on the left side, isn't feeding off the review with comments, the coaching opportunities, the, advise employee to take better pictures type thing. It's always a priority follow-up that's feeding off of that normally is going to make us go back to our residents. What I've noticed over time, and we've been using P3 for a long, long time now, regulator installation was the biggest thing we wrote up. It was the biggest miss that we saw out there, that it was invented properly, the vent was sideways, whatever it was, that was our biggest write-up. Because of using P3, I'm seeing that less and less because we've coached our employees that if they don't properly orient, or if it's already installed, correct the orientation of that regulator vent, they're going to get written up for it, and it's being corrected now. So we're pretty much annihilating that entire issue, which is really good. What we're seeing now is more of, I don't want to say nitpicking, but the smaller issues. If we see someone filling a source of ignition, we're kind of surprised. Our employees are trained at that level, but an opening into a structure they might have missed, a window below to the right of a tank that was behind a bush, that type of thing is what we're writing up a lot more, is opening into structure, more than, the regulator or the actual tank set stuff. And that's a credit to the system we're using and the number of people we have using it.
Yeah, well, you've done an awesome job with it, Ed. I think, the point that I generally make is that if you cut down the cycle time from work going in to review made, you change behavior, because our experience is that your field team does not want to go back out to that house. So once they understand, if I don't remote vent that regulator, I'm going to have to go back out.
Yeah.
our experience is that they're going to start doing it differently based on the fact that they just don't want to go back.
Right. And a big piece of this is the auditors have to audit in an efficient manner. You can't let something get put on the dashboard. You can't see something that's an issue, not get it audited and get it back to the field as quickly as possible. If 30 days go by before you audit your work, you're missing the boat. You're missing that coaching opportunity. The employee's repeating the same bad action time after time. We are fortunate. We have a pretty good sized propane team, and we push auditing that everybody is getting their locations up to date every week. That means within 7 days, there's an audit there if something's wrong. The employee's not going to forget, hey, that was a month ago. Hey, that was last week and you did this wrong. We need to get out and correct it. That's what really needs to happen to get the program working correctly. And sending out this report is huge on that for us, that not only do we send it out every Thursday in the morning, everybody gets the report. I'm talking about it the next day on conference calls with the divisions to make sure their attention's on it. And what can we do to help you get this right? Do you need us to help with the coaching? What went wrong that we had this audit happen? And, to be honest, sometimes, if you're setting someone in November, it could be a pool heater and it's not going to be running until the spring and it may be stuck on the dashboard. And we understand that. We're still going to write it up so that it's tracked and resolved when the time comes in May to start that pool heater.
Yeah, totally. That cycle time again it becomes less of a coaching opportunity the longer that you wait, and that's that not all of our field team are making the same mistakes. They have different questions, and they certainly don't love to raise their hand and say, I don't understand that in general. So to give them that feedback, I do see that with the managers. It's getting them to feel a sense of responsibility. I mean, there's a lot of conversations we have with management teams where there's confusion over basic terminology. Your management team should know the difference between a leak check and a pressure test. That's really basic stuff, and it's really essential. And we can certainly help with that if they don't. I think we do a good job simplifying it. Maybe it's so important. It just gets, I guess, lost in the mix sometimes.
Yep, absolutely. Keeping it in front of them, letting them know what they need to do is what the system does. And I look at it two ways. For any multi-state marketer or multi-location marketer, to get out there and spend time in the field with your employees once a week on an install is a huge investment. We do field training, we do field work, especially with our new employees, to make sure that they're understanding the education they got. But that investment is huge. And it's a lot easier to pinpoint what you're going to do out in the field by using this system, because I can look and say, okay, this employee has had 5 issues in the last month. This is what I need to talk to them about in the field. Rather than going out there and just seeing what they did that day and catching something small, I have a target list of what that employee's challenges really are to help improve their skills.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, you really evolved the whole process. I mean, when we were developing this early on, we'd hear, from our multi-location partners, they'd go out once a year and pull all the files that, 25 safety inspections from each service technician or tank setter. And, they could be a year old, that
Right.
process. I mean, this really changes all of that.
Yeah, we were doing field inspections with our employees that they were trained, and then we were doing audits at the location. And I personally was doing that, and you go out to a location, you do an audit, you'd find a few things to write up, and that employee doesn't work anymore. That was 7 months ago. That employee's already gone. I'm looking at paperwork that's irrelevant. Now we need to go back and fix this because we didn't do the right thing when we were there the first time. We don't have a good leak check on that property, which everybody in the industry knows that's the most important thing, is ensuring there's no leaks in the system.
Well, that's great, Ed. We are so excited to be developing more functionality and to have partners like Ed and Star Group. And, we feel we've built something that every marketer in the country should be using, and we're just gonna be making it better and better. I think, hoping by the end of the year, we're gonna have some really cool new mobile inspections, as well as the reporting to go along with it on a singular dashboard and multi dashboards. Bulk plant inspection is something I'm definitely pumped up about. I don't know, Ed, if you don't have any other thoughts, I think we could kick it off to see if folks have some questions.
The only thing is I am really excited about the future, as a multi-state marketer, and you don't have to be multi-state if you're a multi-bulk plant marketer to look at one report in the future and see that all your annuals are done, all your maintenance is done, to look at your meter creeps across whether you have 20 trucks or 3,000 trucks, to look at your meter creeps and see if something failed over the last month. The future is really looking bright, and I think all the information going into the system, being able to report out on it, is only going to improve everybody's operation and safety for the entire propane industry.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great thing that after both of us were in the oil industry at first, and there's, I would say, a little bit more camaraderie in propane industry because, safety is just so key. I mean, it's just the last thing, you'd want to have happen. The catastrophic incident is much different in the propane industry than the oil industry.
Yeah, and it doesn't just affect the company that happens to, it affects the entire industry. So absolutely.
Well, great. Well, thanks. Jane, do we have any questions that came in?
So one question that we got is, what part of the multi-location dashboard will be developed next, if you know that yet?
I think couple things. Probably the monthly meter creep, being able to look at your locations. And that's been a great inspection. Man, there's been a lot of marketers I've talked to that they didn't even know about the monthly meter creep. It's something that's really important. You can get some pretty good finds. So I think that's probably high on the list, as well as probably a user report. And this is something that Ed uses a lot, and it basically is a report that's going to show you the last time people logged in. So, keep people honest, a quick report. I think right now, Ed, that's something we're doing pretty manually, and you're looking at it weekly. Is that right?
I'm getting a manual report every day on every employee. It helps in a couple things. Number one, if an employee says, I forgot my password, it's good to look and say, well, you haven't logged in since last October, so what have you been doing? Number two is the office. It's really helpful in the office. It's always been my opinion that the propane clerk is driving the system. The person that's, reviewing your inspections every day, making sure that everything was done from the prior day, is the critical person. But the manager needs to look and be involved in resolutions. And I'll look and I'll see a manager hasn't logged in 3 months when they call with a question. And the first thing I tell them to do is, okay, log in, look at the system, and then call me back with your question, because you're not paying attention to what's going on. Really holding people accountable to use the system, because my big thing is, if you do it every day, it's minutes a day. If you let it go for 30 days, now you need to spend hours trying to get caught up. So that everyday investment into this can just take minutes and, save you a lot of time and potentially a lot of problems.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's what, if there's folks that we're not working with, or even clients that we are working with, but they're not attentive to the workflow coming in, the point I'm making is, like, every day that you're not using P3 or not being attentive to it, there's potentially follow-ups that are happening in perpetuity that, you could be stopping. And the quicker you jump into the process, the better.
Yeah, you're missing the coaching opportunities too, because that employee is just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again until you tell them they're wrong. And, being on top of it is critical. Your employees will be much happier for it. I don't have anyone complain about using this system, I can tell you that.
That's great to hear.
Great. And then one more question, will this presentation be recorded for future viewing?
It will. Yep, it'll be recorded. I think, do we make that? It'll be on our YouTube channel. And Jane, do we put it anywhere else, or?
We put it in P3 under training videos, and then there's a follow-up email sent out too with the recording.
Okay. Yeah, so if anyone didn't get it, just reach out to us, but it should be headed your way shortly.
Awesome. That's it for questions.
Well, Ed, thank you so much for joining us, and Cody, thank you, and Jane, thank you.
No, thank you, Kyle. My pleasure.
Well, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.